Hey, hey, hey. Great to see you all on this beautiful, what are we, Wednesday? I'm losing track of days this week. Ah, goodness me. You recovered from the trip, Michelle? I know, we're all so funny. Okay, here we go. Here comes everybody. Michelle, I'm going to get you to help me out. I'm going to make you co-host so that you can help me with admitting people because I'm going to get us started in a minute. I want to be respectful of everybody's time and that, so I'll just make it a little bit easier there. Okay. Thanks, Tom. Alrighty. Awesome. Well, I hope that you're all having the most beautiful week. I'd love for you to share in the chat just, something that you are really, really excited for that's happened over maybe the last week. It could be personal or business. It doesn't matter. What is something that has lit your heart up over this past week, and that love to share. For me, I have to say my heart is busting because I got to spend some beautiful time with an amazing, amazing group of our partners, yeah, up in Uluru. It was such a spiritual place. It really is. It was really quite profound. I don't know, it leveled up the conversations that we were all having. I know for sure that is definitely new convo video call. My grandkids are lovely. Oh, there's nothing better than that, Barbie. I have to say, I get to hug mine. I don't know, it's different days or whatever like that tomorrow, I think. And that I'm watching my dad's health improve after 4 weeks in hospital. Oh, thank God, Melissa. Catching up with old friends, always a good one, Bron. Lavinia, 2 new teamies, 23 customers. Oh my goodness. And also booked my tickets and flights and passports for conference. Well, 3 customers. Okay, 23. I'm thinking, whoa, I was about to ask you, what the heck have you done? Still, that's amazing. 2 new teamies and 3 new customers. How exciting. Well done. Well done. Well done. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Love it, love it. So it's just so important to take a moment to actually always reflect back. It's so easy to remember what's not working, or, and that's in life or business, or the last, the argument you had with somebody, or you were fed up with the kids because they wouldn't get out the door to school quickly enough, or whatever it might be, or, you got a couple of no's in a row, so you just kind of think the world's going to fall apart, and that too. So it's really important to focus, take some time in your week, maybe even diarize it in your diary to really focus on what is it that is actually working. What has lit me up? What am I proud of in this past week? Anything, whatever the words are that you want to particularly ask yourself, taking that moment to be able to do that. So for those of you who are just joining us, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm asking you to share something, whether it's personal or professional, in the chat that lit you up in this past week. Okay, what is something that you're either really proud of or something that has happened that you've been able to do, personal or professional, doesn't matter. Excited for a live event this week at my house. Oh, loving that, Michelle. And I know we've got a Wow Women event tomorrow night too. So if you know anybody or you've got any team that is 50 plus, the amazing Brian Hunter is going to be leading the way tomorrow night. So that's exciting. Really, really cool. Awesome, 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 awesome. Alrighty. Well, we are going to get in this. Thank you so much. I have pressed record, haven't I? Yes, I have. That's good. I'll be halfway through the thing, and Lindy sent me a little message. You have pressed record, haven't you? So, yes, I've done that. I'm so blessed. You all need to have a Lindy in your life that reminds you what you're supposed to have done. And that. So, and your home event is next week, Barbie. Well done. So today, look, I wanted to just talk, have a little bit of a chat. And again, this is an opportunity to ask questions as well. So this is not all about one way, one side kind of thing. But I want to talk about the story and getting past the story of start, stop in our business. Now, this can be relevant for all areas of our lives. How many of us, if we think about it, how many of us have actually gotten started on maybe an exercise program, or, we decided that we're going to meditate every day, or we're going to be on we're going to do whatever it might be. It might be on a new eating plan or whatever. And we start, stop, and we're wondering why we're not getting the results. We start at the gym and we go one day and we don't go for 3 days, and all these kinds of things. It's exactly the same with our business. It's that whole start, stop, and what it looks like kind of thing. I'm just having a little look here. A new team is excited to share the business shared with 3 people in the last 24 hours. Awesome. And that's awesome, Amanda. That's really, really cool. That's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. And we are one team, one mission. So all of the different events, and I love that we're getting even more and more different types of events happening as well that are open to. Awesome. That's cool. I've just off the top of my head, I know I'm probably, but these things are dropping into me. The gentlemen in your lives. Tomorrow night's call that Mick is hosting, the lads call, is the amazing Dave O'Brien. And I don't know if any of you have seen Dave speak before. I know Bronnie will have. He was at a conference, I think, gosh, it's 10 years ago now. It was in Hamilton, Ireland. But he's from Ireland. He's a barefoot runner. He has been on Juice Plus forever. But he's just amazing. He's hilarious. So it'd be great value add for any of the guys in your life. The flyer is in the partner group. So check it out in there as well. But that will be another great call. That's tomorrow night. Well, it's tonight, isn't it? And then the lads call is tomorrow night. Okay. And the men's event, is that the men's event at conference or the men's call each month, Amanda? Because we've got a men's event happening at conference now as well, the event each month. No, it can be anybody that can have a little look. I mean, it's not always business. Last month was Michael Crossland talking about different mindsets thing and all the rest. Mick organizes lots of different speakers. So no, that can be somebody who might be looking or interested in knowing what this community does to be able to support people. So we'll go with there. Alrighty. Okay. All right. Let's get into this, and I will promise not to digress anymore. I'll get into this. So for those of you who haven't met before, haven't heard my story before, I've been in direct sales since I was 19. Okay. It was something that I got into to be able to build my confidence. And so for me, I'm an introvert by nature. I call myself a situational extrovert. So I can play in that space when I need to, but my nature is to really want to be able to do what I need to do and then have my quiet time. So you'll often see me disappear after I've done something kind of thing, and I'll go and then just recharge and just reflect and whatever like that. So one of the things for me that I knew early on was though that if I allowed myself to, so I was also introvert and I was shy, and they're not the same thing. So if I was in a situation where I didn't really know that very many people, or that I would kind of really play quite small, and I always knew that God had something big on my life, but I just I didn't have the courage or the confidence to be able to step into it. So my mom's friend actually said to my mom, I think that doing what I do, I didn't know she was doing a direct selling company, would maybe actually good for Celine. So I say that I built my confidence around the kitchen tables of Dublin, because it was around them that I actually got to be able to, so it was small little groups to bigger groups to bigger groups to bigger groups. And so for me, it was such a powerful way. Again, it was purely about building my confidence. No idea that I really had the power of what I had in my hand as a business owner. Went to travel the world at 22, forgot to go home, have lived on this side of the world ever since. And that's been a while. I'll be 60 next year. So it's just been a little while. And we have lived in different parts of Australia and in New Zealand as well. So I feel very blessed to call this side of the world my home. Not long after I actually got out here, probably within the first year and a half, I was back in a direct selling company. And again, it was purely because I wanted my Tupperware cheap. So I signed up to be able to get my products cheaper. And I share that because I think sometimes, we can feel that we have somebody who might want to be able to, join up. They just want to get their products cheaper, but you never know where it will go to, depending on the season of life that they're actually in. Fast forward to, I was about, 22 when I arrived in Australia, about 26, 27 when we were having number 2 child. I was back at work when both of those kids our first 2 were only 3 months old. There was no maternity leave back in the day. And we had built our first home, which had interest rates of 18%. So I know we can kind of get a little bit, and some of us are on the call are old enough to remember that. So our mortgage tripled overnight, really. It was ridiculous. So I was back at work when they were both only little. And the next part of this about this whole kind of, sewing into people was that my upline, even though I didn't even understand all of those words really, kept a light on for me, would check in on me regularly, just to say hi, just to see exactly where I was at. But again, it was always around where was I at. And so she just kept sewing into me, kept building relationship. And so when I went back to work, Shane was born in the January. I was back in work in the April. She reached out to me just to check in, how's things going? And I had a bit of a pity party. So we went out for a coffee that following Saturday, and she allowed me just to have my whole little whinge. And she said to me, you do know that you've got a gift in your hand, that you could do something differently. And I had not seen it. And I say that because there are probably many people in our teams, and even maybe ourselves, that have not fully seen the gift that we actually have. And so when she said to me, what is it that you think that I do? And I was literally looking, and I'm, reasonably smart, but I was looking for thinking, what job does she do as well as the business? There wasn't one. What she did and her husband was actually her direct selling business. And it was that wake up call that I needed to kind of go, oh my gosh, this could actually be something serious. I was working in merchant banking. I had a serious career. But it just kind of gave that opportunity for me to see this in a whole other light. Two things that came up for me, and these, no matter how long you're in the business. Now remember, I started at 19. I signed my first application at 19. I'm 27 at this stage. So it doesn't matter. It's not about length of time. There can still be the things that come up for you that you need to, if they're coming up, you need to take that moment to be able to deal with. And because they are the things subconsciously that will create the stop in your business, will stop you being consistent, because they are kind of those little self-sabotage stories. So for me, two things came up. The first one for me was, could I do it? That's all well and good going, okay, if I, walk away from my my job and whatever like that, could I actually do this? Because we couldn't just give up and not have an income coming in. So the first thing was, could I actually do it? And so that has come up a couple of times. And I'm sure that there are some of you that are on this call right now that may be looking at certain positions or check amounts that you want or whatever like that. And every now and again, that little voice might come up about, can I do it? Could I do it? And as she said to me, she said, really, the reality is that, Celine, even with the little that you were doing, you were already doing it. It's about how do you do it smarter, and how do you do it more consistently to create the compounding results. Okay. So that was kind of, so that's part and parcel of it. And the second thing that came up for me was, what will people think? And again, I'm not sure if that comes up for anybody else here. Put an emoji in if you've ever thought, can I do it? And what will people think? Into the chat and that. And so for me, I was concerned about what will people think, that I'm doing one of those things instead of what I classified as a serious career. Again, she asked me an interesting question. She said, so the people that you're worried about, what will they think? Are they the people that if you lost your job in the merchant bank tomorrow and you still have that mortgage to pay, would they be paying your mortgage? And I said, no, they'd probably bring casserole and they're all lovely people kind of thing. But the reality is they're not paying my mortgage. And she said, so then can I ask you, why are you allowing what you think they're thinking to determine the future of you and your family? And it was a real kind of slap in the face kind of thing. I was kind of going, whoa, okay, actually, I'm allowing other people to dictate the life that we choose to live. And we'd left Ireland, all of our family was on the other side of the world, to be able to have an extraordinary life. Not an ordinary life, an extraordinary life. There was nothing wrong with, going to work and dropping kids off and all of those kinds of things, childcare. Lots of people do it all of the time. But I was looking at my life, and some of you may be in the same scenario, where I was getting up, dropping kids to childcare between 7 and 7:30, picking them up at 5:30, 6 o'clock of an evening time, wash, bath, put to bed, and do the same thing the very next day. And the only time when we actually really could live life was probably in a few hours on a Sunday, because Saturday was spent with doing everything that you would try to normally get done during the week. So for me, it was a question of, wow, I'm actually allowing somebody else's opinion determine what I could possibly do in this arena. So fast forward to that, went home, talked to my ever suffering, beautiful husband, who said, you know what? We don't know if we don't know. So let's commit. So it was head down, bum up. Now, had two children under two, couldn't give them away, tried, but they were given back. Still had the full-time office job. Okay. So still had that job. So still was doing everything that I was doing. But I chose that then we would agree that I would just be head down, bum up. So in stolen moments, when kids went to bed, of a weekend, whatever it might be, Sundays were sacred, they were family days, but every other thing, I was investing that time into my business. I'm not saying that that's what you need to do, but what I do know is I wanted to move fast. So this was the April. By the end of that year, I was able to walk in and hand in my resignation. By the end of the January, I had finished in that job. And so at that point in time, Shane had just turned 1. And so we had Shane, who was 1, and Cara at that stage then was 2.5. So what did that mean? Was it plain sailing after that and everything was rosy? Not at all. Not at all. I very quickly learned that actually I was probably more productive when I had my full-time job and everything else that was going in it, because I had very strategic working times. What I did find was, yep, when I gave up work, it was brilliant. And I was able to focus on my business full time, be able to be present for my kids. I had them in childcare 1 day a week so that I could kind of get stuff done that I couldn't do with little kids around. But what I noticed after a few months was that I was getting into this stop-start. I would be going, doing, and all the rest, and then I would let life happen. I would let life happen to me. And I would, I would be going out and doing all of the different things and realizing that I could have days in a row where I was not even touching my business. Was not touching my business. Absolutely. We all have been, Celeste. And so I would have that whole, I would be going for it, or if there was a particular promotion on or whatever like that, I would be run, and then I'd fall in a heap. And then I'd be run, and then I'd be falling in a heap. And so what would happen was my business would actually be doing this up and down constantly. Now, business cycles do that anyhow, but it was more dramatic. There was not that consistency in there that was actually giving me the comfort to know what I would have coming in on a regular basis. So it was an interesting awareness for me, but it took me nearly a year, probably 18 months of actually watching myself do that. It was funny. I was kind of like as if I was watching and didn't feel like I had any control over it. I just thought that was life. So I sat down with one of my mentors one time, and she was actually talking to me around what were the limiting beliefs that were actually playing out underneath. What was the stories that I was actually telling myself that was creating me to do that and that? Because, when we actually really start to dig deep, all of our behaviors, everything that we do has got something else that drives it below, both positive behaviors and negative behaviors. And so it was really taking some time to actually dig down, no worries, Barry, dig down into what was actually going on for me. And for me, and I'm not saying that this is going to be, for each of you guys, but one of the things that actually was happening for me, the story that I was kind of telling myself, was that success, me being successful, would mean that I would leave a lot of people behind. It would mean that I would leave the people I loved behind. So I would get to success. So like, for example, in that first year, built through to manager really, really quickly, which is pretty much like an NMD level. And that I had built through to there in 6 months. I was head down, bum up. I'd qualified for like company car and all the rest kind of thing, everything. Then left the job, then got into it. I went to the next rank, was successful, and then I was dropping. And in that company, in that, you lost your ranks as well. So you could actually move through the ranks up and down. You were pretty much starting your business at the beginning of a month, and that. And so what I was noticing is that I would be going hell bent towards a challenge, but then when that was over, I would just stop. There would be no petering down. It would be like a stop, and I would tell myself the whole story around, oh, I deserved it. I've worked really, really hard, and that. And so when I started to dig down and doing some reflection on it, it was actually about the fear of being successful, and that what would that do with everybody else. So there was a lot of money stories, there was a lot of success stories that were in there. I don't know if this resonates with anybody else. If anybody else has had that, where you're finding that as soon as you get to a certain level, you're fearful around who you might need to leave behind. Because the other part, of course, that in growing this, being part of an amazing community like I was, meant that I was really growing personally as well. So there were those areas in which I was really growing personally as a person. And I could see that some of the relationships I had, some of the friendships that I had, were starting to fall away. And even, and Mick will share this with you too, even with him and I, we were growing at different levels and different rates. So over those next few years, as I was growing, there were times when, where we were at were very, very different spaces. And so it would be, I would find myself stopping myself growing anymore. That was both personally and professionally, because I didn't want to, of course, leave him behind. And that too. Yeah, Ronnie. So you have that thing. And so instead of actually me taking personal responsibility for how I needed to be, how I needed to continue to grow, to inspire him, to inspire our kids, to inspire others, I was putting a cap on myself. So who else has ever been guilty of the only time that you're consistent in your business is if there's some challenge on? So we just come out of Uluru, for example, okay? And, there was many where it's a promotion that's put on, or there's whatever. Yeah. And we go for it. Now, am I saying that, achieving promotions and all that, or trips or whatever, are not awesome? They are. I mean, I was like that too. I never missed a trip, and that I would go for it. But what I actually did instead, what I needed to learn to actually have sustainable success that was consistent and compounding, was actually look at what I was doing on a daily basis. Now, I think that the challenge that I would have had is probably even more difficult today, because social media is in the mix now too. So we can be so tempted to do, 20 messages out today, and then feel absolute overwhelm, and 20 messages tomorrow, 20 minutes, or whatever the number is, and that. But because we can reach so many different people, and that we do all of this and then have the overwhelm, go into a little bit of hiding, because we've got to then manage those conversations. We've got to be able to. So for me, it would be like I would be running really, really hard, and then I would not be able to be in a situation where I was actually managing it. So then I would just stop. I would just kind of, I would just take the break, and I would tell myself the story about how I really deserved it. I'd worked really, really hard towards this, that, or the other, and so I deserved to have a break. Now, again, all of those stories and all of those things, we can find plenty of ways to be able to justify them. But what I learned was that unless I learned to be able to be consistent so that my results would compound, I would never have the long-term success and security that I actually craved for. I wanted to know that I had a business I could rely on, not just in the runs, but always. There will still be the little ups and downs, but I wanted to know that the underneath was always growing. There was always going to be those extra little wins that, it might be an extra bonus you get or whatever it might be. But I wanted to know that the base income was always going to be growing. So what did I do there? Is this resonating with people, by the way? Is this anybody else ever felt the same, or am I just talking to myself? Am I the only one that's ever felt like this? Yep, cool. All right, awesome. Okay. So one of the things that I really looked at was just putting a few things in place. Now, some of you will heard me talk about this, so it's not rocket science at all. The first thing that I put together was my grid. Okay, it was my grid, and I've got one of my very last grids that I did from when I was in the field, and that too. And I keep this to constantly, it sits on my desk to constantly remind me of, no matter what it is I'm doing, Whether it's a personal goal, relationship goal, prayer goal, whatever it might be, I create some kind of grid. I just come back to the basics every single time. That check off. Because for me, I know that one of the best ways for me is to be held accountable. And that can be accountable to myself, but be accountable to something. And the grid is one of the simplest things that I know. So I looked at what was it that I knew was my bare ass minimum no matter what. What was that? That was always going, that was just a non-negotiable for me. So if you think about it, when you're starting and stopping, has anybody ever had to push a car that's broken down? Okay, alrighty. So if you push a car, and just imagine that car is actually on a slight hill as well. Okay, so you're pushing, 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 and you start to get a little bit of momentum where it starts to get a little bit easier. Okay, has anybody ever done it? And that kind of thing. So you're pushing, 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 you start to. When we're in our business and we're pushing that car and we decide that, okay, well, I'm going to push the car on Monday and Tuesday. Great, great, great. But I'm not going to push it on Wednesday. I need a little rest because I've worked hard on Monday and Tuesday. So Wednesday, I'm not going to hit. So what happens when we start to push the car on again on Thursday? We're starting from scratch again, aren't we? We're literally starting from scratch. So we'll do a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Oh, but Sunday I'm resting. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything kind of thing. And Monday it's a public holiday, so I'm going to rest as well. Okay, so I'm not going to do anything. So by the time I come to Tuesday again, I'm literally starting from scratch again. Whereas if we can push, push, push a little bit every single day, okay, you lose the momentum. Okay, if you're pushing a little bit every day, what will start to happen is, if anybody has ever pushed a car, or if you want to try it, go out and try the car later on, kind of thing, you're pushing it, it actually starts to get on a roll because the wheels do start to turn and they will actually create a little bit of momentum too. Okay, if you can push it up that hill, then it will just keep on going. Okay, you can get to the top of the hill, start to come down the other side or whatever like that. And if you can just keep touching, 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 it will keep, even if you come to another hill, the momentum will start to bring it up again. You might need to do another little bit of a push, but it'll keep it going. It's the same if you want to bounce a ball. If that's a different kind of analogy that might actually example that might resonate with you. If you're wanting to bounce a ball, okay, you can bounce it, bounce and bounce and bounce it. If you stop for a couple of bounces, it might keep bouncing a little bit, but you got to keep making sure that you're putting your hand on it. So for me, that was what made me realize, rather than me doing these massive runs, that was just head down, bum up, go, 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 kind of thing, consistently. Like I was doing that all of the time. I would do it, then I'd stop, then I'd do it, then I'd stop. That was just wearing me out. There are going to be seasons where you just kind of go, okay, I really want to do a big push here for something. But it shouldn't be the way in which we do business consistently. Consistently is about identifying what is the BAM that I know that I'm going to do on the daily. So for me, when I was in build mode, okay, and then as I realized what I wanted to be able to do, for me it was 5 conversations. Okay, needed to be my 5 conversations to build my business. 5 conversations every day. Why 5 conversations every day? Because I knew I had the capacity to follow up with 5 people over the coming days and add another 5, another 5. When I then got to the stage where I was able to leave my job and kind of continue to go, and of this season of going flat out, once I really, really looked at what it was that I was going to do, I knew that I needed to give my business a high 5 every day. So those high 5 for me was 3 new contacts, okay, really 3 new contacts, 2 invitations. So I was making sure that I was kind of expanding my network, okay, so starting a relationship with them, and at least 2 conversations where I was at the stage where I was inviting people to have a closer look. So that was where my grid came in, okay. It was my minimums. So this is just, I used to just buy calendars for my team, and every single day as a minimum, okay, but it depends on whether you want to do it daily, whatever like that. As a minimum, I would have a square filled in with a contact, okay, and I think you can probably see the colors that are on there as well. Bring it that way, okay, so there's lots of names on there. So on this grid, this one grid of consistently reaching out, inviting to have a closer look and follow up, okay, they could be done in the one conversation kind of thing, 1 or 2 conversations, or it could be that I'm reaching out, I'm getting the conversation going, I'm very quickly moving to an invitation to have a closer look and then sharing with them, whatever that might be. A lot of this in my day was done on the phone. And that face-to-face opportunities or whatever. But whether you're doing it via messenger text, voice message, video, whatever you're finding that is working for you, inviting to events, and that moving them very quickly into the invitation to have a closer look, and then the follow-up about what's the next steps. And that on this, just this one grid here, that resulted in 30 names on here. It resulted in 8 distributors that have signed up, 5 customers, and 7 that were still open to go on to for when I was going back at the end of the month when I did the action on this. Why do you think the results are there? It was because it was a little bit every day with consistent follow-up. And I was compounding not only the relationships, but the results. Because by doing a little bit every single day, I was becoming more powerful in my conversations too. When something would come up, I'd already had that conversation probably with somebody else before. So I was able to dig deeper and overcome whatever the excuses might be that they had on the other side, or have the confidence to actually ask some more questions. How many of us, and this was me in the beginning, would do the reach out, maybe even the invitation to have a follow-up, to take a closer look, but was afraid to do the follow-up because I was afraid of what the answer would be. When you're doing consistently every day, honestly, you don't care about what the answer is. And I mean that in a completely respectful way. If we're only reaching out to 1 or 2 people a week, we are very attached to what the outcome is. If we're reaching out to a couple of people, and again, I know some of you probably reach out to lots and lots of people, and again, social media, I think that's the downside of it, because, you know, where do you get to be able to really leverage and dig into the beautiful conversations and build the relationships? So that's what I need to learn to do. What was my BAM? What was my bare ass minimum that I was going to be doing? And then what was it that I was prepared to do to follow up on a regular basis? So when I look at this one, I remember so many of these names. And by the way, this is over 15 years ago. This is actually, oh geez, even longer now. 2012, okay? And that, I still remember so many of these names because they were relationships that I fostered. They are still, actually, some of them are still in the direct selling company that I was building at the time, in there as well. And there are names that they weren't just names, they were people, because I got to know their stories as well. And some people can say, oh, that's a really long way to do it. I just think that it is about relationships. It is about being mindful of what that looks like. So having that opportunity to be able to build into them meant that I got more powerful results. Okay, because I knew what was going on in their lives and that too. So taking that time to know, okay, what is the minimum that I'm going to do? And what is, for me, in making it non-negotiable. So can I say too, I pretty much, other than a Sunday, I made sure I reached out to somebody every single day, even if it was only one for the day. But I knew that there was never a day that I was actually going to not touch my business. I just knew that that was going to be something in the social media world now. I probably would also do a reach out on a Sunday because it takes me like 2 minutes. It would take me 2 minutes to actually do a reach out or expand my network or whatever like that too. So I love the example that Richard Bliss-Brooke does around this, because when I think about it, every reach out is not going to result in something. But the more you're doing it, the more powerful you are. But he uses the example, and I don't know if any of you have seen this, he uses the example around the cards, the deck of cards. And he talks about how many aces are in the deck of cards. Because the other thing that can actually stop us from doing these reach outs and, you know, working consistently is the number of no's that we get. But what I also learned was I got a lot of no's on there. See, there's a lot of X's on there. If I was just, you know, crying my wheat bix every time I got a no kind of thing, I wouldn't have gotten the 8 new distributors and the 5 new customers. Okay. Now, my first lot of grids didn't have that many nice colors on there for yeses. I can tell you it was probably an awful lot more X's than there were. But the other thing with those X's, I always looked at them as no, not now. They were never no, not ever. So those people would actually go back into I had a list in my diary for every 3 months. I was always circling back as well. And that, because life changes. How many of it? My life had changed. I had been in this profession for 6, 7 years before my life had changed enough to actually do something different. To know that I was going to I needed to change in my life, kind of thing. So is that line in the sand moment for you right now? Is that line in the sand where you go, you know what, actually, I really do want something different out of my business? What is it that I could do over the next 5 weeks? Actually, I was going to say 6 weeks, 5 weeks. We're all going to be together in Brisbane in 5 weeks' time. What is it I could do between now and 5 weeks' time to build it? Could I be turning over my cards? Could I be doing my next one? Okay, it's a 3. They're probably not going to do anything, whatever like that. A 2, you never know, kind of thing. Okay, I'm going to keep turning them. Oh, 7. Now that person there, they're probably going to be a customer. That's awesome. Okay, alrighty. That one's an 8. Oh, they're definitely going to be a customer. They may even be a raving fan. I've got a 9 in here. Okay, all right. They're definitely going to be look at wanting to do something. 4, no, might not be. 5 might not be. None of that. But what if I found an ace? What if I found somebody who was actually ready to rock and roll? What if I found an Amanda or a Grecian or a Celeste or any one of you kind of thing who's kind of going, oh my gosh, that's an ace. That's somebody who actually I'm going to be able to run with. They're going to be wanting to do it. But if I'm not turning over the cards, if I'm not filling in my grid, I'm not going to find those, those kings, queens. Okay, there's a king. Oh my gosh, you know what? That's somebody who's ready to run with me as well. I'm not going to find them. So when you draw your line in the sand and you realize that out of that whole deck of cards, there's only 4 aces in there. What if you made that okay? What if you made it that, you know what, every single day, by being consistent and doing whatever it might be for you. So it was a high 5 for me. I was giving my business a high 5 every day. What if I knew that I was going to draw 5 cards every single day? I was going to build in those relationships and I was going to follow up with them. They might be a no, not now, and that's actually okay. But they may also be, yes, I really do feel that I'd like to add Juice Plus to my diet right now. Or actually, yes, these interest rates, and now they're saying there's going to be another 2 rate rises possibly before the end of the year. You know what? Yeah, I actually do need to think about adding some extra income. What if those 4 were your aces? And you turned over that deck of cards every month. Imagine having 4 people ready to run with you every month by just turning over those cards every single day. And what happens, and like I said with this, my first grids didn't look like that. There was more crosses than what there were yeses. But what happened was, what I realized was, by me being consistent every single day, not just when I was running for something, when me being consistent every day, my results compounded. So I didn't have time to be worrying about whether there was a no coming, because I actually knew that there was a yes coming. There was an ace in that deck of cards. I knew that there was going to be. And sometimes there were multiples of them. Sometimes I'd have conversations, you might get aces all in a row. And sometimes I could have conversations and it was 30 no's before I got to the yes. But what kept me going and being consistent and compounding my results is that I always knew, I was guaranteed that there are kings, queens, aces in the deck of cards. I knew there was a few jokers as well, but there was always going to be kings, queens, and aces in my deck of cards. So if I kept turning them over, I knew that I was going to get the results. Is that helpful for anybody? So I was listening to a podcast earlier on today with an amazing guy called Gordon Hester. He's a dear friend of mine. He used to be the business manager for Jeff Roberti. And he actually is a GM in another direct selling company now. And we stay in touch. But he was being interviewed on a podcast. And he actually was talking, and I really loved these points. So I actually added them into my notes for today. He actually talked about production is the key to growth. There is no other secret. Whoops, remind me to wrap up soon. There is no other secret. Production, what we do on the daily, is actually the key to growth. How we go about that production, though, is really up to you. There's no way of avoiding the core things to do. And for us, the core things that we do are reach outs, invitations, and follow-ups. They're the core things that we do. He also said, and I loved this as well, he said that events, the ability to be able to gather together, whether that is around a coffee table, an in-home, a conference, a trip like Uluru, is actually the stickiness that really creates the point of difference that we have as an industry. He said he's not seen anyone, whether that's a company or a person, make the success long-term in, because some companies have either added in or moved to affiliates, so they've gone away from the compensation plan and just gone to a pure straight affiliate model. He's never seen that the success, and he's a real numbers person, is Gordon. I don't know if any of you have met him before, in those companies who went in that direction. He said we have a really, really powerful model, and we've actually started to take it for granted. And I loved what he was talking about, because he's just so passionate about the fact that it's production, it's the consistent items, pretty much what I was going to be talking about anyhow. He said it's that production is the key to growth. And one of the most important things that we have as a production model within our industry is those events, is getting together. And so, like I said, whether that is person to person, over Zoom, whether it's conferences, incentive trips, whatever it might be, the opportunity for people to get together, preferably in person, is the thing that will create the stickiness. So as part of what you are going to be doing as part of your bare ass minimum, what would that look like? And before I open it up for more questions, I shared this this quote that I saw on Instagram into one of the leaders groups today. And I actually thought it was really powerful. The universe never rewarded someone for sitting on the sidelines. If you want to make something of yourself, you must enter the arena and lock the gate behind you. You don't need more time. You don't need more information. You don't need more confidence. The only way you can achieve the goals you want to achieve is if you master the work required to achieve them. The only way you can achieve mastery is if you rise to the challenge and enter the arena. Stop waiting, start doing. So I really thought that that was actually quite relevant to what we were kind of talking about today. So for you that are on here at this particular point in time, and you're hearing about where you might be at in your own business, was there anything in there today that resonated or you wanted to ask about? Remember, no questions are off the table. And that, is there an example that you want to share, or is there a question that you might have about consistency and compounding, or anything actually? Don't be shy. You can either unmute or you can type it in the all of it. Awesome, Gration. That's cool. Keep turning over the cards. I think that's one of the most important things that we can do. And can I also say too, and I love this, Kirsty shared this in one of the groups earlier on, because of the incentive trip, whether you are on it or not, all eyes are on us because there's so much out there. You can share, whether you are on the trip or not. There is so much of our beautiful team that are actually sharing about the trip. Share their stuff, going, I'm so excited for my friend who's just come back from an amazing incentive trip in Uluru. Share it out. Literally leverage the content that's happening at the moment, because it will create curiosity for people to be able to be on your grid, to be able to have some more conversations with. You could share something as, oh my gosh, so excited watching, Amanda on the trip at Uluru. Kind of, I am not missing the next one. Who's with me? You literally create, you can start to create curiosity. Sometimes we think because we weren't there, we don't get to be able to leverage it. Absolutely not. Share your friends what they've been doing, okay, to actually be able to create, to create more curiosity. Okay, getting started and getting out of my own head has been the hardest for me. I'm super hungry, but just need to get a DMO, I think. It's like anything. It's like going to the gym. It's like, building muscle. It's like getting into any habit. The only way you build courage and consistency is by doing. There is no shortcut to it. I know lots of people like to talk about, oh, trying to make it quicker, easier, or whatever like that. But the reality is that we've got to show up and do the work. However, it doesn't have to be arduous. It can be fun. I used to make this fun. I loved seeing how many names I could get on there and what would it be. What would it actually turn into? I would have a little competition with myself. Could I do better than I did last month? And that too. I would have competitions in my team. We were constantly sharing our grids, what we were doing, how we were going. And I would recognize my team. They were always sharing their grids with me. That was one of the things. Monday night training was about, like, show me your grid. Let's do some things. And we would have competitions and ideas. I'm a simple girl. I know there's probably a technological way to do this and that, but I just love visuals. I'm very about visuals. As you can probably see across my desk here, I've got everything. I've got visuals of my grandchildren. I've got pictures down here that you can't see. I've got grids of the business, where we're going, recruiting, all of the things is all here. I'm a very visual person. So anybody else who is visual, share my grid. It's as in a picture of it or whatever. It's like 30 squares on a piece of paper. That's a grid. So that's literally all that's on here are just the names that I worked with. So yeah, it's literally it's that I found when it feels overwhelming for me, I just start with one task. Perfect. Absolutely. What is the one, like this could be your grid for the month. Okay. When I was in build mode, it was my grid for the week and that because it was 25 to 30 kind of thing that I was wanting to do. But literally it can be your grid for the month. If you are putting one on there every month and you are doing the follow-up, there you go. Well done, Joe. I can see some stuff there on that. That looks like a calendar of some sort. And that, but that literally, can you imagine how happy would you be if at the end of this month you were able to say, I had 8 new teamies, 5 new customers, and 7 that were still in open conversations? Who'd be happy with that for the end of this month? I would be. I think many of you would be in that too. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, any other questions? Has this been valuable today? I know it's probably like preaching to the converted, but at the same time too, I think it's always powerful to be reminded on how complicated we sometimes make things and how consistent it can be quite by just choosing what we're going to do on a daily basis and making it fun, that it can actually be the thing that can change. My business changed incredibly once I got to this space. It went with ease and flow. Were there still some hard days? Absolutely. That's life and that's business. But what it did for me, it gave me basically my line in the sand, what it was always going to come back to, what I was always going to be doing no matter what. Okay, that was just a non-negotiable for me. And from there, it just had that compounding consistent thing. I didn't have the super, super high, the really, really low lows. And I would do the occasional run because it was towards something, really, really important, a rank advancement that I wanted to put a concerted couple of weeks into running into a thing, or, if there was something on, but it wasn't this constant stop, start, stop, start. I never, ever gave up on my bare ass minimum. Everything else was a bonus. And that too. Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. All righty. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with me. And I cannot wait to be able to see you all in Brisbane in 5 weeks' time. It is payday this week, by the way. I think, what are we on the 8th? So probably push it probably tomorrow. So it's definitely in for the 10th. So if you've not got your conference ticket, now is a great time to actually think about purchasing it. So see you then in 5 weeks' time. All righty. Take care. God bless everybody. Bye.